Alright, let's talk about Oblivion Remastered, because honestly, this game has had one of the wildest hype to drop-off cycles I've seen in a little bit. Now, back when Bethesda dropped Oblivion Remastered early this year, sort of completely out of nowhere, fans went nuts. It was a complete shadow drop, no marketing campaign, no long trailer cycle, just boom, here it is, enjoy. And you know, that worked for a few days. Oblivion Remastered was one of the most talked about games online. It was one of the most played games on Steam, and a lot of people thought, hey, Bethesda have pulled off an absolute masterclass here. But here we are, not even 5 months later, and Oblivion Remastered's Steam review score has absolutely tanked, now sitting at just mixed among recent reviewers. And it's not just the reviews, the player numbers have plummeted as well, and while that's generally to be expected from a single player game, when you take a look at Skyrim and its numbers and its consistent popularity, you realize that something has definitely gone wrong here. Overall, it seems that just a lot of PC players are not happy, to say the least. So today, let's dive into this whole situation. Why Oblivion Remastered shot up so high in the first place, why it fell so hard, and what problems the community is facing, and whether there's any light at the end of the tunnel. First things first, let's rewind all the way back to the launch in April of this year. Oblivion is one of the most beloved entries in the Elder Scrolls franchise, hands down. For many people, it was their first big open world RPG they ever played. It came out all the way back in 2006, which was like right about as Xbox 360 and modern PC gaming were just starting to pop off, and it left a massive impact. I mean, who doesn't remember stepping out of the sewers for the first time and hearing that soundtrack kick in and realizing, wow, I can actually go anywhere I want to in this game. So when Bethesda shadow dropped a remaster in 2025, nostalgia hit like a freight train. On Steam, it hit over 200,000 concurrent players just days after the launch. That's insane for a single player RPG remaster. People were excited to relive the magic, and even new players were curious about checking out a legendary game that maybe they missed out the first time round, but now it had updated visuals and graphics. At the time, critics and fans alike were saying, okay, Bethesda may be onto something here. Maybe they're finally learning from Skyrim's longevity. Maybe they're just warming us up for Elder Scrolls 6. But as we'll see, things started to go south very, very quickly. Now, let's talk numbers. Like I said, Oblivion Remastered had peaked at over 200,000 players in the first week, but by July, just a couple of months later, that number had dropped to around 10,000 players. And now, if you look at Steam charts, the peak is hovering at around just 4,000 players. That's a pretty brutal drop-off. Some people tried to brush it off at first, saying, well, you know, Oblivion has a shorter main campaign than Skyrim, so maybe people just finished it and moved on. And sure, Oblivion's main quest isn't exactly endless. You can burn through it pretty quickly if you go full degen mode. But here's the thing, Elder Scrolls games aren't just about the main story. They've always thrived because of the side quests, factions, mods, and just overall replayability. Skyrim is sort of the prime example of this. Over a decade later, it still pulls in massive numbers thanks to mods and player freedom. So, the fact that Oblivion Remastered shed players so fast isn't just about the story length, it's a sign of deeper issues. So, you know, what are those issues? I mean, PC performance is probably top of the list. If you've gone through recent Steam reviews, there's a clear pattern that jumps out. People are frustrated with things like frame drops, even on high-end rigs, you know, long loading screens that sort of kill immersion and the gameplay loop, and bugs and glitches that feel like they should have been ironed out way before launch. Now, that's obviously something we see a lot with modern game launches, unfortunately, but, you know, it shouldn't be the case, to be honest. One of the most surprising complaints is that some players are now claiming that the game actually ran better at launch than it does now. Think about that for a second. Usually, and not always the case, but usually updates are meant to improve performance. But in Oblivion Remastered's case, it feels like later patches introduced new issues, or at least failed to fix existing ones. There are plenty of clips online showing people hitting huge stutters in big cities, textures not loading in, or characters just completely bugging out.
Do your worst. He was here a second ago. He was here. Where are you? He was here a second ago.
And while some jank is to be expected from an Elder Scrolls game, let's be real here, Bethesda is basically built on that. The performance issues here feel like more than just funny glitches. They actively get in the way of enjoying the game. For a remaster of a nearly 20-year-old game, it's just not a good look. But okay, maybe you're thinking, yeah, well, games launch rough sometimes, even more so these days, and surely Bethesda are on top of it and patching it, right? Well, Yes, but no, not really. Yes, there were 2 major updates early on, one in June and then another one quickly in July. That fixed some things, but since then, it's basically been radio silence. No hotfixes and also no communication on upcoming patches, just no communication whatsoever. And for players, that's super frustrating. Games like Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky turned things around because their developers pumped out patches and actively communicated with the community on an ongoing basis. With Oblivion Remastered, it almost feels abandoned, like Bethesda quietly moved on once the launch hype had died. For a game that people were expecting to be able to play for months or even years, that lack of support really stings, and I think it's sort of killed the vibe within the community in general. Now, let's get into maybe one of the biggest, if not the biggest elephant in the room, mods. Mods are the lifeblood of Elder Scrolls games. Skyrim wouldn't still be one of the most played games on Steam without its modding community. That's just a fact. There are mods that completely overhaul graphics, add entire new quest lines, new mechanics, even full-blown expansions, not to mention all the crazy mods that add things like Jesus as an NPC companion, or the one that replaces all of the texture for cages in the game with the face of none other than Nicolas Cage. Oblivion itself had a massive modding scene back in the day. Fans created everything from silly weapons to entire new story arcs. It's part of what gave the game its legendary status. But Oblivion Remastered, the mod support just isn't there. The system feels closed off and community creators just can't easily bring their old mods forward to the new game. That means players lose out on one of the biggest reasons to keep coming back to play the game. And without mods, the game feels pretty bare bones, especially when you compare it to Skyrim. Once you finish the main quests and some of the guild storylines, there's really not much else to pull you back in, and for a lot of fans, this is where they draw the line. So what does this all mean for Oblivion Remastered and for Bethesda in general? Right now, the game's recent Steam reviews are sitting at mixed. Player counts are scraping the bottom of the barrel and the community doesn't know if future fixes are even coming. Meanwhile, Skyrim continues to thrive thanks to mod support and years of updates, and people are already looking ahead to the upcoming Elder Scrolls 6, which was just recently announced. It raises bigger questions about Bethesda's priorities in general. Was Oblivion Remastered just a quick cash grab on nostalgia? Did they underestimate how much polish fans expected? And most importantly, what does this say about their ability to deliver with Elder Scrolls 6, which is supposed to be the next big leap? For fans, that uncertainty is tough. On one hand, Oblivion is still a classic. On the other, this remaster shows how badly things can go wrong if developers don't commit to long-term support. Overall, it's a frustrating situation in general because the foundations are there. The original Oblivion is still a fantastic game at its core, but unless Bethesda step up, this remaster risks fading into obscurity. So what do you think? Can Oblivion Remaster still be saved with the right updates, or is it already too late and dead in the water? What does this mean for Elder Scrolls 6? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because honestly, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to give a like and subscribe for more content. Your support is very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.